War doesn't end when the fighting stops. That's something they don't tell you when you sign up. They tell you about honor, about duty, about protecting what matters. They tell you about strategy and survival and sacrifice. They don't tell you about the quiet afterward. The kind of quiet that lingers in your bones. The kind that follows you home. My name is Cale Turner, former infantry sergeant of the Terran Outer Fleet. Retired. Discharged. Honorably, according to the record. But records don't tell the whole story. They don't mention the sleepless nights. The echoes of distant explosions that never quite fade. The faces you remember when you shouldn't, and the ones you forget when you wish you could recall them. And they definitely don't mention her. Because at the time, she didn't have a name I understood. She was just the enemy. The war against the Varelian coalition lasted 8 years. 8 long, grinding years of conflict that stretched across multiple systems, leaving entire planets scarred and half-forgotten. It wasn't a war of good versus evil. It was a war of misunderstandings, of resources, of fear. At least, that's what they said later. When it was over. When it was easy to analyze from a distance. Back then, it was simple. They were the enemy, and we were the ones sent to stop them. I met her in the 6th year of the war, on a world called Arctis 9. Cold. Harsh. Unforgiving. The kind of place where survival was a constant battle, even without a war layered on top of it. Our unit had been deployed to secure a strategic outpost near a fractured ice ridge. Intelligence suggested Varelian forces were using it as a staging ground. We were supposed to move in, clear it out, and hold the position until reinforcements arrived. Standard operation. Nothing about it was standard. The attack went wrong almost immediately. The Varelians were already there. Not in small numbers. In force. We walked into an ambush so cleanly executed that it felt like they had been waiting specifically for us. Take cover, I shouted, diving behind a shattered ice formation as plasma fire tore through the air. The world exploded into chaos. Ice shards shattered under impact, the ground trembling as energy blasts carved through the terrain. We returned fire, but they had the advantage. Position, numbers, and something else. Precision. They moved like they were connected, every action coordinated, every movement purposeful. Fall back. Our lieutenant ordered over comms. But falling back wasn't easy. Not when the enemy was closing in from multiple directions. Not when the terrain itself worked against you. I fired, ducked, repositioned. Survival mode. Instinct. No time to think. No time to question. Just act. That's when I saw her. At first, she didn't stand out. Just another Varelian soldier moving through the chaos. But then, something changed. She broke formation. While the others advanced in coordinated lines, she moved differently. Faster. More direct. Her armor was sleek, dark, with faint glowing lines that pulsed as she moved. Not bulky like ours, streamlined, almost organic in its design. And her eyes. I caught a glimpse through the narrow opening of her helmet. Bright. Focused. Not wild like some of the others. Controlled. She was heading straight toward one of my squad mates. Private Lorne. He was pinned down, weapon jammed, scrambling to fix it while incoming fire pinned him in place. She's going to kill him, I muttered. Without thinking, I moved. I broke cover, sprinting across open ground. Stupid move. Reckless. But it was too late to reconsider. Hey! I shouted, firing a burst to draw her attention. It worked. She turned, those glowing eyes locking onto me. And in that moment, everything else faded. The noise. The chaos. The war. It was just the two of us. Opposite sides. Same battlefield. Same moment. I fired again. She dodged. Not like a machine. Like someone who had done this 1,000 times. She closed the distance faster than I expected. Too fast. I barely had time to react. Our weapons clashed. Hers a blade of shimmering energy, mine a standard-issue rifle that suddenly felt very inadequate at close range. She struck. I blocked, barely. The impact sent a jolt up my arms. She moved again. Precise. Efficient. Lethal. I knew I was outmatched. This wasn't a fight I was going to win. Then everything shifted. A shot rang out from somewhere behind me. Not mine. Not hers. One of our units. The blast hit her from the side. Her armor flared, absorbing most of it, but the force was enough to throw her off balance. She stumbled, and for a split second, she was vulnerable. I had a clear shot. A perfect shot. All I had to do was pull the trigger. End it. End her. That's what I was trained to do. That's what I was supposed to do. But I didn't. I don't know why. Even now, years later, I still don't have a clean answer. Maybe it was the way she looked at me. Not with hatred. Not with fear. But with something else. Something aware. Like she understood the moment just as clearly as I did. Like she knew I had the choice. And was waiting to see what I would do with it. My finger hovered over the trigger. Then, I lowered the weapon. Go, I said. It was insane. Completely irrational. But I said it anyway. Go, I repeated. She didn't move at first. Just stared. Then, slowly, she stepped back. Then another step. And another. And then, she turned. And disappeared into the chaos. We survived that battle. Barely. Reinforcements arrived, pushing the Varelians back and securing the outpost. It was declared a victory. Didn't feel like one. Too many losses. Too many questions. And one decision I couldn't explain. I never told anyone about her. What was I supposed to say? That I had let an enemy soldier walk away? That I had chosen not to pull the trigger? That wasn't something that got you medals. That got you court-martialed. So, I kept it to myself. And the war continued. I didn't see her again. Not during the war. Not in the remaining years of fighting. The Varelians were still out there, still the enemy, still something we fought and feared. But she was gone. Just a moment in time. A choice I made once and never spoke of again. Until the war ended. And everything changed. Peace wasn't sudden. It wasn't clean. It came slowly through negotiations, ceasefires, and a long, fragile process of rebuilding something that had been broken for too long. Borders shifted. Alliances formed. Old enemies became something else. Not friends. Not yet. But not enemies either. Just people trying to move forward, like the rest of us. I left the military a year after the war ended. Couldn't do it anymore. Didn't want to. I settled on a small colony world. Nothing special, just quiet enough that I could pretend things were normal. I took up work as a mechanic. Fixing things was easier than dealing with people. Machines made sense. People didn't. Life became routine. Predictable. Manageable. Until the day she walked into my shop. The bell above the door chimed softly. I didn't look up at first. Be right with you, I called, tightening the last bolt on a damaged engine component. Footsteps. Light. Measured. I finished the repair, wiped my hands, and turned. And froze. She stood in the doorway. No armor. No weapon. But I knew. Immediately. It was her. Time didn't slow this time. It stopped. Completely. Because there are some things you don't forget. Some faces. Some moments. Even years later. Even after everything. I said. It wasn't a question. She tilted her head slightly. A familiar gesture. Then she spoke. Do you remember me, human soldier? The voice was different. Softer. But the tone, the control, the presence, it was the same. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I said. I remember. A small pause. Then, good, she said. She stepped inside, the door closing quietly behind her. Up close, she looked different, less distant, more real. Her features were still alien, subtle differences in structure, in the way her eyes reflected light, but not so different that I couldn't read her expressions. And right now, she looked uncertain. You came a long way to ask that? I said. No, she replied. Then why are you here? She held my gaze. Because of your choice. I frowned. My choice. On Arctis 9, she said. You chose not to kill me. Yeah, I said. I remember that part. That choice had consequences. Most do. She took a step closer. Do you wish to know what they were? I hesitated, because part of me, the part that had spent years trying not to think about that moment, wasn't sure I wanted the answer. But another part, the part that had always wondered, needed to know. Yeah, I said. I do. She nodded, then said something that changed everything. You saved more than my life that day. I blinked. Okay, what else did I save? She was quiet for a moment. Then, you saved a war from continuing. I stared at her. That's a big claim. It is accurate, she said. How? She looked at me, and for the first time, there was something in her expression I hadn't seen before. Emotion. Not strong, not overwhelming, but real. I was not just a soldier, she said. I figured that, I replied. You were skilled. I was a commander, she said. I nodded slowly. Okay. More than that, she continued. I was a decision maker, a voice within our leadership. I felt something shift. You're saying? Yes, she said. If I had died on that battlefield, the course of the war would have changed. How? Others would have taken my place, she said, with different views, different strategies. And you? I chose to pursue negotiation, she said. I let out a breath. Because I let you go. Because you did not kill me, she corrected. Silence. Heavy. Real. You're telling me, I said slowly, that one decision, one moment helped end the war? Yes. I sat down, because suddenly standing felt like too much. That's a lot to process. I understand. No, I said. I don't think you do. She waited. I've spent years thinking that moment didn't matter, I said. That it was just something I did. It mattered, she said. Yeah, I said. Apparently it did. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked the question that had been building since she walked in. Why come here? I said. Why now? She met my gaze. Because I remembered, she said. Remembered what? You, she said. That was not the answer I expected. I'm not that memorable, I said. You are, she replied. Why? Because in a moment where you were expected to act one way, you chose another. I leaned back. Yeah, I said. That tends to stand out. It does, she agreed. Another pause. Then, I wanted to see you again, she said. That landed differently. Just to see me? I asked. No, she said. Then what? She hesitated. Just slightly. Then, to understand why. Why I let you go? Yes. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know, I said finally. That is not an answer. It's the only one I've got, I replied. She studied me. You felt something, she said. Yeah, I admitted. I did. What? I exhaled slowly. Like, you weren't just the enemy, I said. Like you were a person. She was quiet. Then, that is what I felt as well, she said. Something shifted in the room. Subtle, but undeniable. Years ago, We stood on opposite sides of a battlefield, defined by war, by orders, by everything we were told to believe. Now, we stood here. No weapons, no sides, just two people, connected by a single moment, a single choice. You ever think about what would have happened if I pulled the trigger? I asked. Yes, she said. And the war would have continued, she said, for longer, with greater losses. I nodded. Glad I didn't then. As am I, she said. She stayed longer than I expected. We talked about the war, about what came after, about everything that had changed, and everything that hadn't. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And when she finally stood to leave, I realized something. I didn't want it to end. You going back? I asked. Yes, she said. Important position and all that? Yes. I nodded. Figures. She paused at the door, then looked back at me. Will you remain here? She asked. I shrugged. Probably. A small pause. Then, you could come with me. I blinked. That's not a small offer. No, she agreed. I considered it, really considered it, because, once again, I had a choice. Stay. Or step into something unknown. Something bigger. Something that might change everything, just like before. I smiled. You know, I said, last time I made a choice involving you, it ended a war. Yes, she said. No pressure, right? None, she replied. I looked around my shop, at the tools, the quiet life I had built, then back at her, at the future she represented. And I realized something. Some choices don't come often, but when they do, they matter. All right, I said. She waited. I stepped forward. Let's see what happens this time. War didn't end when the fighting stopped, but sometimes it ends when people choose something different. Years ago, I chose not to pull a trigger. This time, I chose to move forward. And as we stepped out into the light together, I had a feeling this was just the beginning.